It is during the 18th century when an Italian scientist, Dr. Victor Frankenstein, studies alchemy, inspired by famed alchemists like Cornelius Agrippina and Paracelsus. His goal is to obtain the elixir of life, but this ambition is cut down when he witnesses the remains of a tree that had been struck by lightning, torn apart by the immense energy. This compels Victor to study science instead, and he develops his talents in chemistry in particular. Yet, his obsessive dedication to study quickly leads him to research life sciences. This research draws his attention to the concept of reanimating corpses strictly through scientific merit. He wishes to hone his scientific knowledge to the point where he can grant life where there was none before. His ambitions soil his temperament, resulting in a god complex of sorts. As such, it is unsurprising that his greatest desire is to artificially recreate the biblical original humans, Adam and Eve. Pulling this off becomes his life's pinnacle achievement. In spite of this, the technology available to him is only sufficient enough to produce one. To maximize efficiency, he strives to first form Eve, who can then give birth to her Adam counterpart. His mental perception of Eve is that she's wise, gorgeous, and undeniably perfect. On a dreary night in November, he finally succeeds at giving life to a patchwork of lifeless flesh through the energy harnessed from lightning. This female form is comprised of both flesh and mechanical parts, all wrapped in bandages. Aligned with Victor's vision, his creation is indeed beautiful, petite, like a well-crafted doll. In his eyes, however, that is not enough. It's a failure. A failure. A failure. A failure. A failure! What the hell? This is just a worthless doll puppet. It has no emotion. Did the lines not connect? Even the tear glands are no good. Forget the fact that this isn't even the perfect maiden Eve. It isn't even human. Victor's creation is conscious, enduring all of his complaints. She watches as he furiously pulls at his hair. His frenzy saddened her even more than being called a failure. "I'm sorry, Father. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being a failed creation. I'm sorry. I'll correct myself. I'll properly correct myself. So please don't be angry. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. Don't be angry." Her plea is genuine, but despite her sorrow, she cannot cry. This only reinforces Victor's rage and fuels his alcoholic binges. Regardless, she attempts to comfort him, only to be viciously beaten each time. While she cannot feel pain, her heart tightens itself because she cannot ease his suffering. After contemplating how to proceed, she decides to leave the house and venture into a nearby forest. There, she finds joy in discovering the lush green trees, serene ponds, and warming sunshine, wondering if these things might make Victor happy. While in thought, a stray dog discovers and attacks her. Drawn by the rotten smell of her clothing, she tries to defend herself, and her immense strength winds up tearing the dog's head off, unveiling its gruesome insides. To her, however, this is fascinating, and the stench of blood is pleasant. Pretty. This is pretty. Since I don't have this inside me, it's surely pretty. Seeking to better understand the organic parts she lacks, she opens the dog's abdomen and discovers its fresh pink entrails. In awe of their beauty, she gathers them to bring back to her father. Doing so instantly destroys what little bond they have. Victor now sees her not only as an emotionless failure, but also a hideous monster. He feels that finding beauty in blood and intoxication with entrails is horrifying. Worried about his terrified reaction, she tries to explain herself. "No, that's not it. Really, that's not it. I'm normal. I just wanted to make you happy, Father." Her efforts are in vain, as Victor screams, "You are a monster! A mad monster!" He disassembles her and flees the estate. Isolated and abandoned, Frankenstein's monster contemplates what she did to upset him. While piecing herself back together, she decides she needs to become more like a human, to emulate them and practice their common sense. She pursues Victor to Geneva, Switzerland, and along the way develops many emotions, including an anger for Victor for abandoning her. Yet, she also develops admiration toward her father and his abilities. In Victor's absence, she begins to desire a mate based on the observation that humans have families. After kidnapping various men, she understands that a mate is not someone she can simply steal away. When she locates her father, she begs him, "Please make someone who will love me. Please make someone who will look at me. If I'm supposed to be the perfect mate in Eve, you should have a responsibility to make the original human Adam as well." She wants to love someone and be loved in return, but her request is continually denied. Fearing that she'll be in solitude until her dying day, Frankenstein's monster chases after Victor, blaming him for her anger and sorrow. If she could not be loved, then at least she could be hated. In her vengeful pursuit, she murders Victor's family, his acquaintances, and his fiancée, yet he still denies her, resolving that he'd rather die than grant her wish. Thus, Victor, no longer the brilliant man he once was, now a frail old man, dies in madness. His creation, with no one left to pursue in hatred, carries her father's body north, where she builds herself a pyre, where she and her father are consumed by hellfire. In her final moments, she wishes, "May my ashes be scattered across the seas." In legend, she is documented as a hideous monster and winds up recorded into the Throne of Heroes as an anti-hero who can be summoned due to the Greater Grail being tampered with by an ambitious mage, Darnik Prestone Yugadamillennia. In the modern era, he and a gathering of affiliated mages attempt to rig the Holy Grail War system in their favor to easily attain its power. Their attempt derails when a mage from the association triggers a backup function of the Greater Grail, forcing the conflict to become a 7-on-7 battle between forces of red and black. Thus, the Yugadamillennia faction summons 7 of its own servants, the Servants of Black. Among the mages in the clan is a young man, Kaulis Forvej Yugadamillennia, born as a potential replacement successor because his sister, Fiore, was born with paralysis in her legs. Fiore's magic circuits were of a rare quality, and unfortunately Kaulis's were not as proficient. His sister, despite her handicap, is still viewed as a better magus, so Kaulis serves as her caretaker instead. Fated to be a mediocre mage as his sister succeeds the family, he pursues other means of living. Yet, upon receiving command seals for the Holy Grail War, he loses that freedom and must participate as a master. In preparation for the summoning, Fiore purchases the aged blueprints of Frankenstein's monster from a freelance magus and gives them to Kaulis to use as a catalyst. The young magus joins his more experienced colleagues in a group summoning ritual, nervously altering his chant to guarantee a berserker servant, and succeeds in summoning Frankenstein's monster as intended. After conversing with the other servants, Frankenstein's monster is reluctantly nicknamed Fran. Fran's elegant form alarms Kaulis. Despite her growling, she is surprisingly gentle, spending her idle time picking flowers from the estate's garden. She has endearing quirks, such as a desire to conserve energy when it's being wasted. Literature and film had both portrayed Frankenstein's monster to be a towering masculine horror, rife with intimidation, so the reality makes Kaulis question his approach to her. In battle, Fran wields an electroconductive mace. She charges with her perpetual motion engine's ability to self-generate electricity. She possesses 2 distinct noble phantasms. The first is her heart, bridal chest, the maiden's chastity. It allows her to absorb the expelled mana scattered across the battlefield. This mana can be harnessed much like a mana burst skill, which she applies to enhance her speed. The excess mana travels through the bulk of the mace into its tail and transfers into Fran's body via the apparatus on her ears. In addition to gathering mana, it can convert the mana from thaumaturgical attacks, such as wind and beams, into the bioelectric energy that fuels her. This process, galvanism, is particularly helpful because Fran fights with such a massive mana output that Kaulis, through his own talent as a magus alone, cannot hope to supply. Her other noble phantasm is an offensive technique based on the image that inspired Victor Frankenstein into scientific research. Blasted Tree, the lightning tree of crucifixion. By planting the tail of her mace into the ground, she can channel the mana within her to swell into a devastating tornado of discharged electricity. At full power, it decimates a 100-meter radius with its tree-like silhouette as its branches target various foes. Fran can also use her own body to unleash the attack if her target is a single foe. By itself, it is surprisingly weak, rank C at best, because of the limiters placed on her body to prevent deactivation. By releasing these limiters, the attack is easily capable of destroying a servant, but its cost is great, destroying Fran's body in the process. It is a destructive suicidal attack with a special effect mentioned in the blueprints. While the attack will surely kill her, the electricity unleashed also contains Fran's will, which can take refuge in her targets. Under the right conditions, this will can even be used to create a second body. Regardless, the cost of using this noble phantasm is too high, so Cowlus and Fran both come to an agreement that Fran is never to use Blasted Tree without her limiters engaged. Thus, the full effects of the attack are never tested in advance. Through simple nods and shakes, Cowlus finds a way to communicate with her. He learns she prefers to be called Berserker, as well as confirms her desire for a mate. The Yggdrasilenia homunculi are not appropriate. She fights for the Grail to have a unique mate designed specifically for her, made with the same technique lost when Victor perished. Her sentimental nature shines through in how she quietly follows her master around, like a loyal pet. Despite fighting her hardest in the war, she is forced to endure further tragedy. In pursuit of Shiro Kotomine, Fran encounters William Shakespeare, who uses his noble phantasm to force her into an illusion where she confronts her creator. Victor Frankenstein speaks softly and kindly to her, encouraging her to stop fighting. In life, Fran had never been shown such kindness, so this imitation of Victor provokes her into a violent rage. She lashes out and tears the false Victor to shreds. The experience brings her to tears, traumatized in despair. To calm her down, Cowlus makes use of a command seal. While she survives that encounter, she meets her match in combat with Mordred. On the verge of defeat, both Fran and Cowlus realize that they can defeat Saber of Red by unleashing the full power of Blasted Tree. In desperation, Fran clings to Mordred, restraining her while Cowlus powers the attack with his remaining command seals. While the blast is definitely enough to defeat Saber, her master Shishigo uses a command seal of his own to teleport her to safety. Cowlus weeps, feeling he has used her noble phantasm prematurely. He fears he let her down, assuming he has lost her completely. Yet, there was one other person within the blast radius, the fallen homunculus Sieg. Fran's electric noble phantasm reaches his body and jumpstarts his damaged heart, bringing him back to life. The revival allows Fran's will to inhabit Sieg's body and lay dormant, preserved within him. Fran's will awakens within Sieg during his final battle with Shiro Kotomine, granting the homunculus the ability to form his own Blasted Tree attack. This brings joy to Cowlus's heart, as his wonderful servant, through her sacrifice, is able to assist Sieg in thwarting Shiro's plans of invoking Heaven's Feel on the world. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then go check out some of my other lore videos. It's my goal to make one of these for virtually every servant in the Nasuverse, and I would appreciate your support through that journey. The best way would be to become a patron of the channel. We offer different reward tiers, ranging from early access to the chance to suggest your very own video. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to Otaku Daikun for more anime lists, reviews, discussions, lore videos, let's plays, and the Holy Waifu Wars. Until next time, celebrate your fandom.